Youth, if you have your signs with you, you could always use them again here at our front corner for free prayer. It's no charge. I want to begin by bringing to mind a trope, something that is used in storytelling. A trope is used in storytelling to kind of play off of things that you already know, so that you kind of fast track to get to the emotional experience that the author or director is trying to get you there. The one I'm talking about, seen in books, movies, you'll even see it in real life. The Lord's son, the son of the king, the son of the Lord, goes out on a journey with the Lord's men. Now, the men that this Lord's son is out with, these are hardened veterans who have been through so many things together. They've been through cold nights, through hard battles, through long roads. They know how to do this. They know what they're doing. But the son, he is the heir. He has the correct last name. He has the position, but he doesn't have the miles. He's soft, he's uncertain, and he's green. He doesn't know how to carry the weight correctly. He doesn't know what to do next, and he doesn't know what to do when things are difficult. So the men slow down. The whole process will slow down as they have to explain things along the way or pick up his slack. A familiar scene. I suspect you could even think of or name a movie where you've seen this. When we see this in books and movies, something in us resonates with it, and we can kind of say, yeah, that feels true to me. I understand what's happening there. Why does it resonate with us so deeply, this trope? It resonates because we intuitively know that true strength is forged, not inherited. Respect is earned, not handed down. You are only truly great when you have bled with the others. When you have worked through things and suffered with them, then you can truly be great, not simply because you have the position. So that's why we respect the Lord's men in these stories. Not because of their position, but because of their perseverance. They've been tested, they've endured, they've stayed when others would have quit, and this gives them a kind of greatness that no title could ever give them. These men have a powerful honor. We can see the positive benefits that it gives them in the strength of their arms, in the scars on their faces. And then we have Luke 22, where the disciples at the Last Supper start arguing about who's the greatest among them, as if greatness is something that they can declare for themselves, that they can earn it simply by grabbing it through speech. Are you truly great if you have to declare it? But Jesus doesn't applaud ambition here. He doesn't reward or celebrate their aggressiveness. Instead, verses 27 and 28, he says these powerful lines, "I am among you as one who serves, and you are those who stood by me in my trials." Real greatness is not about being recognized for your achievements. It's about being a faithful servant. It's not just about bearing a name, but it's bearing the weight of love and loyalty alongside others. And according to Jesus, it is these people who do this, who serve in this manner, for whom they understand, they get the kingdom. They know it. They actually, truly receive it. Now, as we go through this text, it's part of our sermon series on life together. And the idea being, how do we do church in the context that we find ourselves? And I've chosen, with Doug's help, as our guide for this sermon series, that we're going to follow along with Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who lived in a time when fascism was taking over Germany and had taken over Germany, and he had to try to figure out, what does it mean to be a Christian who's faithful in this time? How do I respond to this context? And I think it's terribly important for us today to similarly ask, what does it mean to be a faithful Christian in this time? And this text is one of the ways that we can read and say, how is Jesus asking us to live as Christians in this season that we find ourselves? Important to recognize the context of this text. Where does it come? Where is it situated in Luke? As I mentioned, it comes as part of the Last Supper. In the Last Supper, very poignantly, Jesus is saying to his disciples, I'm not going to have another meal like this with you. Isn't this fun to be together? But this is the last time I will do this until I have been raised again from the dead, because I'm going to suffer and be crucified and die. And Jesus says to them, I'm also going to be betrayed by one of you. In that poignant moment, the first thing the disciples do is they check with themselves. Is it me? Could I be the one who's going to betray Jesus? I don't think it's me. It's probably not me. I think it's over there. I think it's them. Do you guys think it's them? And they start to talk amongst themselves. Who could it be? Which one of us is going to betray Jesus? If only they could have figured it out. Maybe they would have, it's Judas. Let's grab him. Let's make sure he doesn't go anywhere tonight. Let's stop this thing in its tracks. The idea that if we could just have figured out who was going to betray Jesus, then it all would have been fine. You know that's not true. Because they all left him, didn't they? They all betrayed him. Which one of us is it, Lord? Is it me? Not to be outdone by themselves, questioning who's the betrayer, they immediately turn and say, well, okay, we've kind of talked about who's the worst of us. Maybe we should also talk about who's the best of us. And how do we determine that? What's the grading scale that we're going to use to say, here's our best disciple? You know, the worst disciple is the one who betrays Jesus, clearly. But our best disciple, who is it? Is it the one who does what? In human civilizations, if you look around at the different cultures in the world today, different ethnic cultures, there seems to be, the Spanish have the best word for it, but it seems to happen in other cultures as well. It's machismo. It's this idea of what is a man's man, and how does a man's man operate in the world? And we think great service looks like those Lord's men when they are fully male being men. But isn't their service just some method of actually trying to show you how great they are? And in our different cultures, the different forms of machismo in each of our civilizations, it's actually men competing to say who's the greatest. It's me, I'm the greatest, clearly. And I'm going to take that space and I'm going to take that role. I'm going to let you know who's the greatest. Where do you fit in the scale of who is great? Maybe it all would have been fixed if we had not male disciples, but female disciples. Yeah? It could have been a whole lot nicer, right? They're all loving and kind to one another and to everybody else. They're going to care for the least, the lost, and the lonely. You don't even have to preach that sermon, Jesus. They've got it. I have 2 daughters. Wonderful women, incredible human beings. But I hear stories of high school and what happens among girls in high school. I don't think it would have saved it if we had all women disciples. I think it's the human condition. I think it's the human condition, our desire to compare ourselves to one another. To say, I think you're doing it wrong. I think it could be done better. I think I could actually do it better than you. I think things could be different if somebody else was doing that. They could be better. And in fact, I can probably tell you who's the greatest among us. My scale is this. This is how I count points, and this is where you fit in my scale. We do this so easily. As often as not at workplaces, right? Your scale is the amount that you get paid. That's how great you are. That's how worth it to the company you are. Interesting that in our current context, this pressure from the overlords, if you will, to don't talk to each other about how much you get paid. Let's all keep that secret. We don't want you comparing with each other, not because there's some virtue that they're trying to establish, don't compare yourself to each other, but we don't want you to know the score that we're giving you, because it's a way of control and power. What's the cure to this? Do we even need a cure? Well, what Bonhoeffer recognizes is that as soon as any Christian community forms, as soon as you have Christians to come together, sure, you can have a great, lovely time singing and praying together. This is wonderful. But as soon as you try to do something together, a dispute arose amongst them. Christians have the same problem we've always had. Jesus says, my life is the life of sacrifice and grace, and we say, Okay, but who's going to be the greatest? Who's going to run the show? Who's going to have the positions of power and authority and comfort and wealth? It's a human condition, and it infects even the church. What's the cure? How does Jesus offer to us and invite us to counter this fallen nature of ours? Well, hold on. Does it need to be countered? I mean, next thing you know, Micah, you're going to be saying, if we're not going to reward and identify greatness, that what we need instead is participation awards. Is that where you're going with this? Shouldn't we identify strength, train it, and reward it so that it can be even better? Don't let the weak ones hold back the strong. The way this takes form, I think, incredibly powerful in our civilization, like an idol, is around athletics. You want to identify the top athletes as early as you can by grading them on a scale, who can score the most goals or do the most assists, who's the best player at a young age, and then you're going to narrowly focus on them. Everybody gets some training, but we're going to make sure that if you're really good, you're going to get most of the opportunities. You're going to get the best advantages because you're already good and elite, and we want to make sure that you have the best chance of making it to the NHL, of course. We're going to promote, identify the strength, the best athletes early, and then try to give them the advantages so that they can thrive and succeed. What actually happens? Well, what actually happens is we tend to pick the athletes who happen to be the most developmentally ahead at that age gap, at that bracket. But of course, in that bracket, some kids are just simply older. And what has been recognized is that the folks in the NHL are just, in the first 3 months of the year, they tend to be born in January, February, or March. If you're born in April, I'm sorry, you will not make the NHL. It just doesn't work that way. We tend to identify the strongest athletes simply because they're developmentally ahead in the age bracket that we have arbitrarily set. And then what happens is you never actually get to give those same opportunities to kids who actually had the potential to be the stronger athletes. And similarly, if you already have, I mean, hockey's expensive, but if you already have a lot of money, you can actually put your kid in camps to give them those advantages to get them further ahead. So either you're older or you have money and you're going to get further ahead in athletics than otherwise you could have. How are we doing with choosing the greatest and doing it well? We're actually not doing a great job. What happens through the shortcut that we have identified, since we can't truly predict greatness, strength, and quality, what ends up happening is we're actually, through this shortcut, forming a culture of a different kind. We're forming a culture of entitlement, and we're forming a culture that creates an ego confidence. It works. After a fashion, these kids do become good at the sports. But it doesn't actually get the best athletes we could have, and it doesn't form the best athletes we could have. And I think when you see the misbehaviors, ethical misbehaviors, the moral failures of people in sports, part of it is to blame in the way that we have formed and shaped them, and we are all guilty of this because we haven't worked against it. It doesn't form the best, and it doesn't get the best. When we try to identify greatness, pick it out, choose it, and select it. Now, in the Roman world, what Jesus was referring to, he talks about benefactors. He uses that word to identify the Gentiles who are in authority and lord it over others. They are called benefactors. In the Roman world, it really meant, if you're on my team, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be your benefactor. I'm going to take care of you. But what's happening is actually concentration of power and capital, kind of like a pyramid structure, right, in less and less people. So I'm going to be the benefactor for a couple of people, and then they're going to be the benefactor for a couple more people, and then each of those are benefactors for others, right? But they are all loyal all the way up to me. And I get to have, as the benefactor, that power and control. This is the word of patronage, that comes in this idea. Artists know this very well. If an artist has a patron, especially if you think Renaissance art, and the patron enables it so that you can do art without having to worry about where your next grocery bill is coming from. This is hugely important for the artist. But what ends up happening, and we see it time and time again in history, is the artist is going to paint the benefactor as a very positive member of history, regardless of what they have or haven't done. The benefactor gains legacy, while the artist gains groceries. Asymmetrical, long-term reciprocal relationships. They're each doing a little bit of give and take. The benefactor is going to give the client protection and going to give them some measure of tax protection and legal protection, things like that. They're going to also be able to provide for them should the person need it. And the benefactor is going to gain back from them, well, actually more financial benefit than the client even got. They're going to gain back land. Sometimes clients had to give their land to a benefactor. And they're going to gain back legacy. Things are going to be named after them. Jesus says these benefactors lord it over them. But it shouldn't be that way against you. To lord it over them is when a ruler uses their power and position to enrich themselves at a cost that's actually borne by other people. I don't know if you think that this might be relevant to our time and place, but I happen to think it is. When somebody lords it over others, there's this expectation that you are going to behave the way I want you to behave. Otherwise, I'm going to cut off the flow of money and protection. I'm going to cut off the flow of what my benefaction gives you. So you're going to behave in the way I want you to. You see this, don't you, in our politics right now? Do I even need to tell you? It is stunning to me that our lobby groups are shaping and forming the way our community laws are made and implemented. Lordship over others. This is poison. It destroys hearts and minds. It can work. I mean, depends what you mean by it works. It works because it achieves outcomes, doesn't it? Humans have proven again and again and again that if we follow this path of lordship over, that we can actually achieve big, beautiful things through horrific means of lordship over others. The oldest one that I can think of off the top of my head is maybe the pyramids. Incredible transfer of wealth from commoners to the higher-ups. And you see it again over and over in history. Through lordship over, you can achieve things on a scale that you wouldn't otherwise even imagine. You can actually get people to do things that they wouldn't even imagine themselves being capable of doing. Concentration camps, execution camps, torture, targeting a certain people group, and then restricting them from having food and aid so that they die. Genocide. You can systematically accomplish big things if you use lordship over. But this lordship over, it is not human flourishing, is it? It is sin run amok. So I think we deeply need to hear this text. Let it sit with us so that we change and form a different and alternate culture to the world in which we live, in which lordship over is the water that we drink, the air that we breathe. What is the antidote? How should we live counter to this? Well, I want to first say I'm not against competition. Steve Mackey, have you already stepped out? No, he's still there. Very good. So, as you may know, Steve and I both play baseball. If you're at all interested in things to do after church today, Steve and I are actually playing baseball against each other. There are two people. Ken Woods, who also attends our church, is with me on the good guy team. And then Steve will be on the Yankees. And I mean, nobody likes the Yankees, so there you go. But you're welcome to come cheer along. Steve probably will need your encouragement. I'm all for healthy competition. But Jesus points us to a way of living in order to cure ourselves of this poison, in order to run counter to it, in order to resist it in our own hearts and in the lives of others. And he says this to us. He says, be like the younger one. Again, like the male culture thing, there is this idea of respect and honor for those who grow old. Jesus says, don't take it. Don't buy into it. Don't fondle it. Don't make much of it. Don't do it. Instead, be like the younger one. How do you establish, thinking of athletics again, how do you establish good culture of your athletic team? Well, the way you train and form your rookies is going to have a huge impact on the culture of your team. You form the rookies how? Well, when I was younger, it's not so politically correct now, but when I was younger, you would tell the rookies what to do. The rookie always had to carry the bag, especially the goalie's bag. The goalie should never have to carry their own bag. Rookie, get it. That's just one thing. But you guys know about hazing, of course. This happens in athletic teams, and it can happen in colleges. The way we treat the first-year student at a college, or the way we treat the rookie on the team. What are we doing here? We're dehumanizing them through these activities of hazing in order to put them in their place so they know for sure where they sit on the hierarchy. That's one way to form and shape your rookies. But maybe you could form and shape your rookies by actually using yourself as an example. I'm going to be the first to go get the bag. Why? Because that's the culture of our team. But Micah, you've been on the team for years, a number of years. I understand. But I'm forming and shaping the culture by leading by example. Be like the younger one. Act like the rookie, says Jesus. Go pick up the bag and don't make the rookies do it. I mean, if they're running ahead of you to get the bag, you can absolutely let them pick up the bag. And then Jesus uses a metaphor of serving or waiting on tables. Who's the greatest, he says? The VIP who comes in and, let's stop everything, let's serve this person, or is it the one who serves? You know who the greater one is, it's the one being served. But I, says Jesus, I come among you as the one who waits on tables. This is so counter to the vision of the good life that you are being formed and shaped in by the culture that you live in. The culture that you live in is teaching and forming you that the greatest way to live life, the vision of what good life looks like, is when you don't have to worry about all the details, someone's taking care of it. You don't have to worry about how the next meal is being prepared. Someone else is preparing it for you, and it's going to be delicious. It's actually the best we have to offer, and it's for you. The goal in life, of the way our culture sees it, is that the good life is where you actually get to be served because you've put in your time. But Jesus says that's not the healthy goal of life. The goal of the good life of the kingdom of heaven is not to be served, but to serve. And so I want to, in conclusion, kind of ask the idea, well, okay, Jesus, what does this serving do for me? How does it work? Well, I don't think Jesus has in mind the kind of slave labor or demeaning service. He's inviting us in to choose to serve. And when we choose to serve, even if we're put into that position by the way our world is shaped, but when we actually choose to wait on the other person, we're actually redefining the encounter. We're reshaping it so that I'm no longer under the social and political manipulative games that you're playing if I'm serving you, because I'm not fighting those games. I'm not playing those games. I'm not seeking to control you. I am instead serving. In true service, you know the freedom that nobody with money can actually buy. When you are participating in true service, you are freed from the manipulative games that poison and shape the heart, that you are trying to be great. When you truly serve, when you give up that desire, you're free from an incredible power that will squeeze your soul and your heart. What we do when we serve, whether it's a Christian brother and sister, or whether it's a stranger, or someone in our community, is we see and treat that person as if they were Jesus Christ. How would I serve Jesus if he came to me in the restaurant? I had the opportunity to work in a restaurant for a little over a year, and it was actually a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it. I am, as many of you know, an introvert. But when I put on my serving apron, I stepped into a role, and I was prepared to do it, and I did it really well. I actually really enjoyed serving and waiting on tables. It's fun. Of course, there are moments when it can be demeaning, when you can be treated poorly. Absolutely, you're serving. But what you recognize, and I was reminded of it again at watching somebody who was barbecuing. This person was barbecuing, and somebody came up to get their hot dog, and the person who was barbecuing said, well, is this enough blistering on the hot dog? Is it done enough for you? I can put it back and make it more done. By offering them this choice, who actually has control? Who actually has power? Well, it's the dude who's cooking the hot dogs. I could burn a hot dog and you have to eat it because that's all that's available. There's a measure in which, as I was waiting on tables, I could go back to the kitchen staff and say, don't make that nice. They're jerks out there. Don't give them any extra skill that you guys have. Just give them the bare minimum. Or just hold it a little longer. They don't need it right away. I just want to see them stew, right? As the server, you actually have incredible power and control, and incredible amounts of delight that happens as you serve. This is what Jesus is inviting us into finding the delight that can only come through free service, where you serve out of the goodness of your heart, and you give up this sense of, I'm better than them, I'm judging them, and I can tell where they're doing things wrong. Just push that all away. What if Jesus was to sit down before you? How would you serve them? Jesus looks a little bit older. Jesus looks a little bit female, perhaps. But they're sitting in front of you. How would you serve Jesus? And what happens is, as you treat this person before you, you realize what it means to receive Jesus Christ as you serve, and power and strength that he has. It's not power and strength, it's power over or strength over others, but it's power through service. It's deep power. As you receive Jesus Christ through serving others, you are waiting on him. Of course, there's the danger of burnout. I don't want to dismiss that we should all be serving all the time. Please do all the things in the church. Everybody sign up for all the things. I recognize that burnout is a real thing. When we try to do too much, when we don't recognize when we should be saying no, when we say yes to the things we should say no to, that sort of thing. Burnout is real, absolutely. But the gift of free service should not be lost. What happens in free service is you forge true strength as you rest upon Jesus in service to others. Resilience and perseverance are yours. Things that you could never inherit, they could not be given to you. You receive them as a gift, yes, but you receive them as a gift as you wait upon Jesus. And Jesus sits at the Last Supper among traitors and rivals and says, I am among you as one who serves. He doesn't offer them power over, but he does offer a special kind of power. Power that comes through presence. Not control, but communion. And in a world obsessed with status and dominance, Jesus invites us to a different way, to stay with him through trials, to serve rather than to strive as a posture of authentic love. And in that quiet, faithful posture of love, we find the strength that you could never receive from our world. As Isaiah 40 says, those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up on wings like eagles. As they wait upon the Lord, they shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Amen.